the stench of despair. The air in the slave market reeked of fear and alien sweat. Zara Chen stood on the cold metal platform, her wrists bound by energy shackles that hummed with electric menace. Around her, creatures from a dozen different worlds gathered like vultures, their eyes gleaming with cruel interest. Some had scales that caught the harsh lights. Others had tentacles that writhed with anticipation, and a few bore faces so twisted that nightmares would be jealous. The asteroid station called Grimhold was known throughout the Outer Rim as a place where morals came to die. Here in the deepest shadows of space, beings bought and sold lives like trading cards. And today, Zara was the featured attraction. The mockery begins. "Look at this pathetic specimen," roared Brutok, the Vorthan auctioneer whose purple skin gleamed with oils. His forearms gestured dramatically at Zara's small frame. "Behold a human female, barely grown, weak as starlight, and about as useful as a broken hyperdrive." The crowd erupted in harsh laughter that sounded like grinding metal. A creature with too many teeth pointed a clawed finger at her. "That thing wouldn't last a day in the crystal mines of Zirion." "Maybe she could clean floors," wheezed another alien, this one resembling a walking mushroom with angry red eyes. "If she doesn't collapse from exhaustion first." Zara kept her chin high, even though her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. She had learned long ago that showing fear only made predators hungrier. Her mother had taught her that before everything went wrong. The price of human life. Brutok's voice boomed through the market speakers, each word dripping with disdain. "Now I know what you're thinking. Why waste credits on human trash? Well, my friends, humans have become quite rare since the Great Purge. Some collectors pay good money for exotic pets." The crowd's laughter grew louder, more vicious. A serpentine being with jeweled scales hissed, "I heard humans cry the prettiest tears when you break them. And they make such interesting sounds when they're in pain," added a hulking brute whose skin looked like charred rock. Zara bit her tongue so hard she tasted copper. These monsters spoke about her species like they were discussing livestock. Every fiber of her being wanted to scream, to fight, to show them exactly what humans were capable of. But she was one small girl against a station full of killers. The bidding war of cruelty. "Let's start the bidding at 50 credits, Brutok announced, his voice carrying mock enthusiasm. "Surely someone wants this rare human specimen for their collection." Silence stretched across the market like a held breath. Then, a raspy voice called out, 20 credits, and that's being generous." The crowd burst into fresh laughter. Another voice shouted, 15. I need something to scrub my ship's waste systems." 10 credits final offer, cried a third bidder. "I can always use her as target practice." Zara's hands clenched into fists. 10 credits, her entire life, everything she was and could become, reduced to the price of a cheap meal. The rage building inside her felt like molten metal in her veins. The breaking point. "Come now," Brutok taunted. "Surely this little human is worth more than 10 credits. Look at those defiant eyes. She still has some fight in her. That's always entertaining to watch fade away." A alien with compound eyes like an insect clicked its mandibles together. "Humans break so easily. Where's the fun in that?" "Maybe we should just space her," suggested another voice. "Save everyone the trouble." That was the moment something inside Zara snapped. All the fear, all the humiliation, all the desperate loneliness she had carried since her capture crystallized into white-hot fury. "You want to know what's worth more than 10 credits?" she shouted, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet market. "Try surviving what my mother would do to every single one of you pathetic wastes of oxygen." The first crack in their confidence. The laughter died like a candle in a hurricane. Brutok's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied her face. Oh, how precious. The little human thinks her mommy is coming to save her. "My mother," Zara said, her voice steady despite the storm raging in her chest, "is Captain Nix Blackwater." The name hit the crowd like a physical blow. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Several aliens took unconscious steps backward. A few of the smaller creatures actually began edging toward the exits. Brutak's purple skin seemed to drain of color. "You're lying." "Am I?" Zara lifted her chin higher, letting steel creep into her voice. "Captain Nix Blackwater of the starship Shadowhawk. The woman who single-handedly destroyed the Calaxian battle fleet at the Nebula of Sorrows. The pirate who walked into the Syndicate's stronghold on Taurus Station and walked out with their entire treasury." Seeds of fear whispers began rippling through the crowd like wildfire. The name Nix Blackwater was legend in the Outer Rim. Stories spoke of a human woman who fought like a demon and planned like a genius. They said she could navigate asteroid fields blindfolded and shoot the wings off a gnat at 1,000 meters. Pirates feared her, governments hunted her, and slavers had nightmares about her. "The Blackwater ghost," someone whispered. "I heard she killed a Thrakari warlord with her bare hands." Another voice murmured, "She's supposed to be dead." A third alien protested, but uncertainty colored his words. Brutak tried to regain control of the situation. "Even if this brat is related to the infamous Captain Blackwater, what does it matter? Nix Blackwater hasn't been seen in over 2 years. For all we know, she's floating dead in some forgotten corner of space." The tide turns, but Zara could see the doubt creeping into their alien faces. She pressed her advantage like her mother had taught her to press an attack. 2 years, she said with a cold smile. 2 years of hunting down every slaver, every pirate, every scum-sucking bottom feeder who deals in human lives. 2 years of building a fleet and gathering allies. 2 years of preparing for war. The market had fallen completely silent now. Even the usual background noise of the station seemed muted, as if the very walls were holding their breath. "You want to know why she disappeared?" Zara continued, her voice carrying clearly in the silence. "Because they took her daughter. Because some pathetic excuse for a life form thought they could capture a Blackwater and sell her like cargo." A shiver ran through the crowd. Several more aliens began moving toward the exits, their earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. The first Victory Brutak's confident demeanor was cracking like ice under pressure. His 4 arms trembled slightly as he pointed at Zara. "You're bluffing. You're just a scared little girl trying to save herself with fairy tales." "Maybe," Zara said, her smile growing wider and more dangerous. "But are you willing to bet your life on it? Because when my mother finds out what you've done, when she sees this place and smells the fear you've filled it with, she's going to turn this station into a tomb. And you, Brutak, are going to be the first one she kills." The purple-skinned auctioneer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Around the market, the remaining crowd began to shift nervously. Some were already leaving, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the market, Zara could swear she heard the distant hum of approaching engines. The game was about to change, and every alien in that room was beginning to realize it. The sound of retribution. The distant hum of engines grew louder, vibrating through the metal floors of Grimhold Station like the heartbeat of an approaching storm. Zara felt it in her bones before anyone else heard it. That familiar thrumming. That meant salvation was coming, wrapped in plasma cannons and righteous fury. Brutak's 4 eyes darted nervously toward the ceiling as dust began to rain down from the vibrations. "That's just a supply ship," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Nothing to worry about. The remaining aliens in the market weren't convinced. A reptilian creature with golden scales hissed nervously. "Supply ships don't make the station shake like that, and they certainly don't broadcast on military frequencies," added a cybernetic being whose mechanical eye was flashing with incoming data streams. "I'm picking up weapon signatures, big ones. The ghost arrives." The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the market in hellish red light that made every face look like a demon's mask. In the distance, alarms began wailing like banshees announcing the end of the world. "Attention, Grimhold Station." A voice cut through the chaos, transmitted directly through the station's communication system. The voice was female, calm, and absolutely terrifying in its controlled fury. "This is Captain Nix Blackwater of the Shadowhawk. You have something that belongs to me." The effect was immediate and devastating. Half the remaining crowd bolted for the exits in a stampede of panic. Brutak's purple skin had gone completely white, and his forearms were shaking, like leaves in a hurricane. "She's here," Zara whispered, and for the first time in months she smiled with genuine joy. The legend in the flesh. The main entrance to the market exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Through the smoke and debris stepped a figure that seemed to absorb the red emergency lighting and reflect it back as pure menace. Captain Nix Blackwater was not particularly tall, but she filled the doorway like a force of nature. Her black coat flowed behind her like liquid shadow, and the twin plasma pistols at her hips seemed to hum with eager energy. Her eyes, the same steel gray as her daughter's, swept across the market with the cold efficiency of a predator cataloging prey. When her gaze found Zara on the auction platform, something deadly and beautiful flickered across her features. "Hello, baby girl," she said softly, her voice carrying despite the chaos. "Miss me?" The reckoning begins. Brutak finally found his voice, though it came out as a squeaky whine. "Captain Blackwater, what an unexpected pleasure. I'm sure we can reach some kind of arrangement." The words died in his throat as Nix drew one of her pistols with liquid grace. The weapon's barrel found its target with the inevitability of gravity. "The only arrangement we're going to discuss," Nix said conversationally, "is how quickly you're going to release my daughter before I start decorating these walls with alien blood." Behind her, more figures emerged from the smoke. Zara recognized, some of them from the old days. Pike, the scarred human gunfighter with cybernetic arms. Quinn, the blue-skinned Altarian whose 4 hands could work 4 weapons simultaneously. And Rosa, the medic whose gentle hands had patched up more battle wounds than a field hospital, the slaver's desperation. "Wait," Brutak screamed, raising his 4 hands in surrender. "You can't just storm in here and—" "Can't I?" Nix's smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. "Funny thing about being a legendary pirate, Brutak. People tend to give you a lot of creative license." She took a step closer, her boot heels clicking on the metal floor like a countdown timer. "Do you know what I've been doing for the past 2 years while you thought you were safe out here in the void?" Brutak shook his head frantically. "I've been mapping every slaver route in the Outer Rim. I've been tracking every ship, every station, every pathetic little hole where scum like you gather to buy and sell lives." Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire market. "I've been building a list, Brutak, and your name is right at the top." The daughter's defiance, while her mother held the crowd's attention, Zara had been working on her energy shackles. The months of captivity had taught her patience and cunning. She had noticed that the shackle's power source was connected to the station's main grid, and the recent explosions had caused fluctuations in the power supply. With a sharp twist and a surge of stolen electricity, the shackles snapped open. Zara dropped from the platform like a cat, landing in a crouch that her mother had taught her years ago. "Behind you, Mom," she called out, spotting movement in the shadows. Krax, Brutak's massive enforcer, had been trying to circle around behind Nix. The alien mountain of muscle and chitin armor froze as both Blackwater women turned their attention to him. "That's a big one," Zara observed casually. "They always are," Nix replied, not taking her eyes off the threat. "Want to show me what you learned while I was away?" Mother and daughter united. Krax charged with a roar that shook the remaining display cases. His 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws, and his thick hide was scarred from countless battles. He was everything that made aliens believe humans were weak and pathetic. He was also about to learn why that belief was a fatal mistake. Zara moved first, diving low and rolling between Krax's legs. As she passed beneath him, she grabbed a shard of metal from the earlier explosion and drove it deep into the soft joint behind his knee. The enforcer stumbled, his charge becoming an uncontrolled tumble. Nix was there to meet him. Her fist, enhanced by combat gloves that could punch through starship hull plating, connected with Krax's jaw. The impact sounded like a thunderclap, and the massive alien went down like a felled tree. "Still got it," Nix said with satisfaction, flexing her fingers. "Show off," Zara grinned, and for a moment they were just a mother and daughter sharing a joke. The station's surrender, The remaining slavers in the market were backing away like the tide retreating from the shore. Brutok was practically cowering. Behind his auction podium, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. "Please," he whimpered. "I was just following orders. The syndicate, they—" "The syndicate?" Nix's voice cut through his pleading like a laser through paper. "Oh, Brutok, you just made this so much better." She turned to address her crew. "Pike, secure the station's computer core. I want every transaction record, every contact, every dirty little secret they've got stored in there. Quinn, round up any humans we can find and get them to the medical bay. Rosa, you know what to do." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role in what was clearly a well-rehearsed operation. The reckoning delivered as, "For you," Nix said, turning back to Brutok. "You're going to help me send a message to every slaver, every pirate, and every bottom-feeding scavenger in the Outer Rim." "What message?" Brutok asked, though he clearly didn't want to hear the answer. Nix's smile was beautiful and terrible. "That the Blackwater family is back in business. That we remember every face, every name, every crime, and that we're coming for all of them." She raised her voice so it carried throughout the station's communication system. "This is Captain Nix Blackwater. Grimhold Station is now under new management. Any slavers currently on board have exactly 10 minutes to reach the docking bays before I start venting atmosphere. Any humans being held captive are now under my protection. And anyone who thinks they can prey on my species while I draw breath." She paused, letting the silence stretch like a drawn bowstring. "Well, they're welcome to try. The new beginning is." Alarms continued to wail and panicked aliens fled toward the docking bays. Zara found herself wrapped in her mother's arms for the first time in 2 years. The embrace was fierce, desperate, and filled with all the words they hadn't been able to say. "I knew you'd come," Zara whispered against her mother's shoulder. "I never stopped looking," Nix replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Not for a single day." They held each other as Grimhold Station burned around them, as slavers fled in terror, and as the legend of the Blackwater family began a new chapter written in fire and starlight. In the distance, more ships were approaching. Other pirate vessels, human resistance fighters, and allies drawn by the promise of justice finally served. The war against the slavers was about to begin in earnest, and the Outer Rim would never be the same. The aliens had laughed at a human child on an auction block. Now they would learn why humanity had survived every attempt to destroy them, why they spread across the galaxy like wildfire, and why some names should never be spoken in mockery. The Blackwater family was together again, and the universe was about to remember why that was a very dangerous thing.